A cargo ship from Thailand is struck by a projectile in the Strait of Hormuz. This all happened yesterday as Iran is launching fresh attacks in the Middle East waters. The regime also joining Hezbollah, both firing simultaneously toward Israel.
At exactly 2:14 in the morning, 3 Iranian Al-Qadr missiles launched from mobile launchers hidden in the hills of the Zagros Mountains. Each missile carried a 750-kilogram warhead, flew at 14 times the speed of sound, and was aimed at the same target, the USS Gerald R. The most expensive warship ever built, sitting in international waters 47 miles south of the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard believed the timing was perfect, the angle was just right, and that America would react 9 seconds too late. They were wrong, but not in the way anyone expected. The USS Gerald R. known as CVN-78, is not just an aircraft carrier. She is a 100,000-ton symbol of powerful engineering, launched in 2017 at a total cost of $13.3 billion. She stretches 1,106 feet from front to back, longer than the Empire State Building is tall. Her flight deck is 4.5 acres wide. She carries 75 aircraft. 2 nuclear reactors power her engines, giving her enough force to travel over 30 miles per hour forever without needing fuel. She holds about 5,000 people on board. Her new electronic aircraft launch system can send planes into the air faster than older steam-powered systems. By any measure, she is the most powerful conventional weapons platform ever built by humans. She was not alone that night. Carrier Strike Group 12 surrounded her in rings of protective ships. The USS Ramage, a destroyer, was 12 miles to the northwest. The USS Farragut, another destroyer, patrolled to the east. The USS Leyte Gulf, a cruiser, was 18 miles to the north, an older ship, but one carrying the most powerful naval defense radar in the area. That radar, called the N/Spy 1A, could track more than 200 objects at once across a 200-mile range. 2 submarines moved silently underwater, their locations kept secret. 2 E-2D advanced Hawkeye aircraft flew in oval patterns 25,000 feet above the group, scanning the skies 300 miles in every direction with powerful radar systems. The Americans had eyes everywhere. They just didn't know yet what those eyes were about to find. Now think about the threat. The Al-Qadr is a missile built inside Iran, based on an older design called the Shahab-3, and improved with better guidance technology reportedly borrowed from North Korea and China. It can travel about 2,000 kilometers, carries a 750-kilogram warhead, and flies in a high arc that can reach between 300 and 1,200 kilometers above the ground depending on how it is launched. By recent estimates, Iran had built or bought about 40 of these missiles. Each one costs between $2 million and $4 million, depending on its guidance package. 3 missiles. Maximum cost, $12 million. Target value, a $13.3 billion ship, an irreplaceable crew, and political effects that analysts said could last for decades. That price difference is not an accident. It is a plan. Iranian military planners call it the war of attrition strategy. Force your enemy to spend $10 defending against every $1 you spend attacking, and eventually, the math beats the engineering. The plan sounds smart in theory. In practice, as this battle would show, it failed terribly. If you want the full truth about how American missile defense actually works, hit like and subscribe so this story reaches the people who need to hear it. The N/Spy 1A radar on the USS Leyte Gulf made the first detection. The system did not see the missiles the way a person sees something. It picked up reflected energy, radio waves bouncing off 3 fast-moving metal objects leaving a known Iranian missile launch area, and within 0.3 seconds, the radar's computer had identified all 3 as incoming missile threats, figured out where they were headed, and sent an automatic warning to the ship's Combat Information Center. A human crew member confirmed the warning. That took 4 seconds. Those were the only 4 seconds that a human being added to the response before the machines took over. The E-2D Hawkeye aircraft received the same tracking data at the same time through a data sharing system called Link 16. Their radar, a UHF system with advanced signal processing, made the tracking even more accurate than the ship's radar could do alone at that distance. Within 30 seconds of detecting the launch, the strike group's Cooperative Engagement Capability, called the CEC network, had shared a combined, live picture of all 3 threats with every ship in the group. Every weapons system could now see exactly what every other weapons system saw. No blind spots. No delays. No confusion. They had 8 minutes and 40 seconds before impact. Inside the USS Leyte Gulf's Combat Information Center, the Tactical Action Officer, a commander with 14 years of experience, reviewed the situation with what people later described as calm and focus. The situation was difficult. 3 missiles were coming in at once, arriving 47 seconds apart, specifically designed to make defense harder. The Iranians had done their research. They knew how long it took to reload the SM-3 interceptor missile. They knew the timing of American defenses. They had planned the attack to push the defense system to its limits. The commander approved firing the Standard Missile 3 Block IIA interceptor. Right away. Let's talk about the SM-3 Block IIA, because this missile is the reason the battle ended the way it did. The SM-3 Block IIA is a missile built together by the United States and Japan, going into full production in 2018. It stands 6.55 meters tall, weighs 1,490 kilograms when launched, and is powered by a 2-stage solid-fuel rocket that pushes it to over 15 times the speed of sound. Its warhead is not an explosive, it is a kinetic kill vehicle, called the 142 Malawian Kwaches, weighing about 10 kilograms. It does not blow up. It crashes into the target. At combined closing speeds near 30,000 kilometers per hour, the force of the crash equals the power of about 400 kilograms of explosives, without any bomb. Cost per missile, $37.5 million each. 3 incoming threats. 3 SM-3 Block IIA missiles authorized for launch. Total cost of that one decision, $112.5 million. Against $12 million in attacking weapons. The math of modern naval defense is not easy reading for people who manage budgets. The USS Leyte Gulf's launch tubes opened. The first SM-3 Block IIA shot out with a sound that crew members later described not as an explosion, but as a powerful, sharp crack, like lightning hitting the ship from both above and below at the same time. The missile climbed straight up, then curved northeast, guided by signals from the ship's control system, while the kill vehicle cooled its sensors and began searching for its target using an infrared camera. Comment Hormuz, if you believe American naval defense technology is the most advanced in the world today. 31 seconds after the first SM-3 launched, the second one left the USS Ramage. 22 seconds after that, the third was in the air from the USS Farragut. The strike group had gone from detecting the threat to having 3 interceptors flying, all in under 4 minutes. They were 5 minutes and 12 seconds from impact on the Ford. Let's talk about what those 5 minutes felt like on the Ford itself. The carrier's own defense systems were already running. The electronic warfare system had picked up the launch signals and was already analyzing the threat. The short-range missile launchers, the Ford carries 4 of them, turned to face the incoming direction. The Phalanx close-in weapons systems, the Ford has 3, spun up their fast-firing 20mm guns to standby mode. These are last-resort weapons, used only when every outer layer of defense has already failed. The fact that they were spinning up was not a comforting sign. The ship's navigator performed an emergency turn, full steering, full speed, pointing the narrowest side of the ship toward the threat while also giving the ship's own radar the best possible view for a final defense. The 100,000-ton ship leaned hard into the turn. The flight deck, normally 4.5 acres of busy flight operations, became 4.5 acres of tense waiting. Aircraft were moved below deck. Crew cleared the open areas. 5,000 people and $13.3 billion worth of naval engineering waited on 3 small pieces of metal, aluminum, and circuitry climbing through the upper atmosphere. At this moment, the cost breakdown was clear. America had committed $112.5 million in SM-3 missiles plus the daily cost of running an entire strike group, about $6.5 million per day, to stop a $12 million attack. On paper, Iran appeared to be winning the money game. But wars are not fought on paper. The first intercept happened at 312,000 feet in the air. The 142 Malawian Kwaches kill vehicle, guided by its heat-sensing camera to within final range, made its last steering adjustments using a ring of 180 tiny thrusters firing in bursts measured in thousandths of a second. The first Al-Qadr missile was traveling at 14 times the speed of sound. The kill vehicle was traveling at 15 times the speed of sound from the opposite direction. Combined closing speed, 18,200 meters per second. The collision lasted 0 time. The first Al-Qadr was gone. Not damaged. Not pushed off course. Destroyed completely. Turned to dust across a debris field 340 meters wide at the edge of the upper atmosphere, close enough to Earth that the flash of superheated aluminum, glowing from the energy of the crash, was visible from the Ford's deck as a brief, silent white streak against the dark northern sky. Silent, because sound travels slowly. The physics of distance. 11 seconds later, the second intercept. Same height. Same method. Same result. The second Al-Qadr broke apart into a cloud of metal pieces and leftover fuel, 750 kilograms of warhead that never fell to Earth, scattered harmlessly across miles of open sky. The third intercept was different. The third Al-Qadr had been given a different flight path, lower arc, faster final drop, specifically designed to shrink the time available for the SM-3 to intercept it and push the missile system past its limits. Iranian planners had calculated this correctly. The third SM-3, fired from the Farragut, missed. Not by much. It came within 34 meters. The kill vehicle's thrusters fired as hard as they could. It wasn't enough. The tight flight path had pushed the system to its edge, and the edge had been reached. The third Al-Qadr was still coming. 42 seconds from the ford. The USS Leyte Gulf's radar immediately switched to the SM-3 Block IIA, a medium-range interceptor with a 170-kilometer range and a 115-kilogram blast warhead that explodes near the target and destroys it with flying fragments. Two SM-2 missiles left the launch tubes at the same time. Two interceptors targeting one threat. Cost of those two missiles together, $4.2 million. 31 seconds from impact. The first SM-2 met the Al-Qadr's flight path at 40,000 feet, 22 miles north of the ford. The warhead's 2,500 pre-made fragments tore apart the incoming missile's guidance section, its remaining fuel parts, and 60% of its warhead casing. The explosion was visible from the ford's bridge, a sharp orange-white flash in the pre-dawn darkness, followed by a rolling boom that crew members standing outside felt in their chests before they heard it. Debris. Falling debris. Large pieces. Falling toward the ocean between the ford's location and where the intercept happened. Nothing reached the ship. The entire battle lasted 9 minutes and 4 seconds, from the moment the launch was detected to the final intercept. 0 people hurt. 0 damage. Complete success. 9 minutes and 4 seconds. Let's understand what that number really means, because it is not just a winning score. It is the real-world result of roughly 40 years of steady American investment in layered naval defense. Let's talk about the Cooperative Engagement Capability, the CEC, because without it, this battle ends differently. The CEC is a live sensor-sharing network that connects every ship and aircraft in a strike group into one shared picture of the battlefield. Developed by Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory and used progressively since the early 1990s, the system uses interference-resistant communications to share raw radar data, not processed summaries, but the original raw returns, between ships and aircraft with updates every 60 milliseconds. The result is that a destroyer 12 miles away from the detecting radar can fire its weapons just as accurately as if its own radar had spotted the target. The system removes the blind spots that any single ship would have when acting alone. Total cost of developing and putting CEC across the fleet, about $4.5 billion over the program's lifetime. The Iranians did not account for CEC in their planning. They built the attack to overload individual ships. They didn't understand or refuse to believe that the strike group was not a group of separate ships. It was one system with many weapons. Now let's talk about why the Al-Qadr's low-arc flight path tactic, the move that caused the SM-3 miss, ultimately didn't matter. The Iranian planners started from a correct idea: make the flight path short enough, and the SM-3's tiny thrusters won't have time to steer the kill vehicle into position. They had studied the SM-3's limits carefully. On its own, their thinking was correct. The third SM-3 did miss. Their tactic worked exactly as planned, and still failed completely, because they planned against a one-layer defense. American defense is not one layer. It is deliberately built in multiple layers: outside the atmosphere, SM-3, inside the atmosphere, SM-2 and SM-6, and at close range, phalanx guns and ram missiles. Getting through one layer doesn't mean you hit the target. It means you face the next layer. The Iranian planners thought of American naval defense as a single wall. It is not a wall. It is a series of separate rooms, each one able to destroy you on its own, with no way out. The intelligence value of this battle cannot be overstated, and this is where the analysis becomes very important. American forces recovered pieces of the third Al-Qadr's warhead section, the one that made it furthest through the defenses before being destroyed by the SM-2. Naval intelligence teams collected metal fragments, broken circuit board pieces, and part of a guidance system over 72 hours after the battle. That guidance unit, or what was left of it, was sent to a Navy intelligence team. The parts used to build it, where they were made, and the software remains all gave a clear picture of exactly how advanced Iran's precision guidance technology is, how much of it came from foreign countries, and what the next version might look like. Iran spent $12 million and showed American intelligence exactly what the limits of its ballistic missile guidance program are. The full cost breakdown at this point is worth stating clearly because it shows the end result of the asymmetric attrition strategy. Iran spent about $12 million on the attack. America spent about $116.7 million on SM-3 and SM-2 interceptors. The ratio, roughly 1 to 9.7 in Iran's favor on paper. Result: 3 missiles destroyed or stopped before reaching their target. 0 damage to the ship being defended. Strategic information gained by the defender. Strategic capabilities exposed by the attacker. The attrition strategy produced a battle where Iran spent money to give America intelligence. The best comparison for what happened here is this: the strike group that night worked like a deep-sea anglerfish. What Iran's planners saw was the bait, a $13.3 billion carrier, apparently sitting alone and vulnerable in open water. What they did not see were the teeth. The teeth were spread across 200 miles of ocean, invisibly connected, responding in fractions of a second, built in layers that required defeating not one system, but 5 separate systems one after another. When Iran bit the bait, it found every tooth at once. Hit subscribe if you want to see the full breakdown of how the U.S. Navy's SM-6 missile is rewriting naval warfare rules in the Pacific and the Atlantic. Now let's talk about the SM-3 Block IIA miss, because being honest demands it, and because the miss is actually more useful to study than the successes. The SM-3's limits against low-flying, fast-descending missiles are publicly known. The Block IIA is the newest production version, with better steering thrusters than the older versions, but physics is unforgiving. When a missile comes in at an angle below about 55 degrees from horizontal, the geometry compresses the available steering time below what the thrusters can handle. Iran knew this. They correctly found the weak point. What they didn't know, or guessed wrong about, was that the Leyte Gulf already had 2 SM-2 Block IIB missiles ready to fire at the third target as a backup plan. The SM-3 was the first attempt. The SM-2 was already prepared as the second attempt. The time between the miss and re-engagement was 11 seconds. In a different defense system, 11 seconds might be wasted time, a gap where the threat travels without being challenged. In the CEC-connected strike group, 11 seconds is the time it takes to hand off from one layer to the next. It is not wasted time.
Control
it is transfer
surfaces
time.
jammed.
That single
Inside,
detail,
alarms.
the 11-second smooth handoff between defense layers, is worth about $4.5 billion in development costs, 40 years of building better plans, and the outcome of this
Flared as
entire
power
battle.
fluctuated,
Share this
and the
video
boat
so
lost
naval
its
defense
ability to
fans and
maneuver.
military history enthusiasts understand what was hidden inside American carrier strike group plans. The phalanx guns and
alive,
rolling
but
airframe missiles
crippled.
on the fort itself
This was
were never
not
used.
an accident.
They were ready. Their radars were locked on. Their firing settings were in place. They are the final layer, the
U.S.
last line of
defense
defense
analysts have
within
long
500
described this
meters
kind
to
of
3
strike as a
kilometers of the
mission
ship
kill.
itself, where the phalanx fires 4,500 rounds per minute of 20 mm tungsten bullets and the ram fires heat-seeking rockets
A
at
way to
incoming
remove
threats.
a threat without
These
creating
systems
wreckage.
were not needed. That is exactly what successful layered defense looks like. You build the outer layers precisely so that the inner layers never have to be used. The
casualties
SM-3's
that can escalate.
$37.5 million price tag is often used in budget
Iran's
debates as proof
response
that American
came
defense
quickly,
spending is out of
but it was
control.
constrained.
The counter-argument, and it is a strong one, is that 3 SM-3 missiles plus 2 SM-2 missiles, costing a total of about $116.7 million, protected a $13.3 billion ship, a
Crisis.
75 aircraft air wing, 5,000 crew members, and America's strategic presence in one of the world's most important ocean passages. The value of that protection is not hard to see.
Coastal radar
It is
systems
obvious.
tracked U.S.
If the
aircraft,
fort had been damaged,
and electronic
not even
interference
destroyed, just
spiked
damaged enough
across
to be
the
pulled
area.
from the area, the chain reaction of consequences would have been enormous. Iran's ability to project power and influence throughout the Gulf would have grown. The cost of insuring oil tankers,
Yet
which
no
already
missiles were
carry
launched
extra
from
risk
shore.
charges for the Persian
To
Gulf,
do so,
would have spiked. Allied trust in America's ability to protect them would have cracked in ways that take years to fix. Seen against that background, the SM-3's price tag looks less like a budget problem and more
would
like
have
a smart
crossed a
investment.
line that Tehran
If
had
this
carefully
breakdown shocked
avoided
you
from
about
the
the real
start.
cost of naval defense, subscribe and comment shield below to show you understand the true math of carrier protection. The remains of 3 Al-Qadr missiles settled across miles of open
Instead,
sky and 47
Iranian
miles of the Arabian Sea in the hours before dawn, invisible to everything except radar screens and resembling falling stars on the strike group's tracking displays.
Forces
By morning,
focused on
USS
signaling
Gerald
strength
R. Ford
through
had returned to normal flight operations. The launch tubes were being reloaded. The E-2D Hawkeyes were back in the air. The CEC network kept sending its updates every 60 milliseconds across the formation,
rather than
steady,
fire,
constant,
keeping defenses
unchanged.
active.
5,000 people ate breakfast. Pilots got their briefings. The carrier turned into the wind to
while
launch
avoiding
aircraft,
direct
looking
retaliation.
no different from any other morning on any other mission. This is the
On
quiet
the surface,
at the heart of modern
the
naval
Persian-
deterrence. Not the missiles, though the missiles matter greatly. Not the radar networks, though they
Beneath
see
it,
everything.
The balance
quiet
of the
itself.
encounter had
The fact that a $13.3 billion ship absorbed a coordinated ballistic missile attack, suffered no damage, learned everything about its attacker's
Gulf
abilities,
remained
and returned to
deceptive.
normal operations before sunrise. That quiet is the real message being sent. It is not sent in words but in continued presence, continued operations, and continued indifference to the attempt.
The Iranian submarine,
Iran tried to make
forced
headlines.
upward by its damage,
America filed it away under routine. The Strait of Hormuz, just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, remains what it has been for decades. Not a choke point for American power, but the place where that power proves itself over and over again. 18% of the world's oil passes
under
through
the
that
watchful
strait.
eyes of U.S.
American
forces.
carrier strike
There was
groups
no
keep it
dramatic
open. 3 Al-Qadr missiles, 9 minutes, and 1 seamless defense system proved, once again, that the proof still holds. The missiles
From
screamed
Washington's
out of the night
perspective,
like
the outcome
punctuation
was
marks demanding to be heard. American defense answered in the language of geometry, physics, and decades of patient engineering. Not with a shout, but with the quiet, deadly logic
Freedom
of
of
systems
navigation
built to
had
be
been
right
defended.
every single time.
Escalation
If you
avoided.
found this breakdown valuable, the layered defense system, the real cost math, the CEC network analysis, hit the like button so this reaches the people who need to understand it. Comment your answer to this question below. Which layer of the American defense system do you think was the most important?
Emphasizing
the
that the
SM-3
vessel
Block IIA
was not
intercepts,
destroyed.
the SM-2 backup handoff, or the CEC network that made seamless coordination possible? Subscribe to this channel because every week we go this deep into the technical reality behind the headlines, the exact systems, exact costs, exact plans, so you understand not just what happened, but exactly why it happened the way it did.